to your Ask Innate episode number 2. So we have 2 questions that we're going to address today. One of them comes from Miss Virginia, and it's how do mental emotional stresses really affect your subluxations? So let's talk a little bit about that. So when we look at mental emotional stresses, they're really, really big, and they don't just affect up here, or they don't just create the I want to pull my hair out type of feeling, but even more so, they're going to create kind of these underlying issues that happen in the body. The most obvious, if you're stressed out, you're usually not loosey-goosey all over the place. You're really tense, your muscles, your body, everything's just kind of in this turned in, hunched over position. So already you're starting to affect your physical stress and what your nervous system is doing on that physical end based on what your posture is, based on the tension and the tone in your system. On a chemical level, what that's going to do and why that's going to create those subluxations in your spine is when you're in that mentally emotional stressed out state, you're pumping out cortisol, which is that stress hormone in your body, much more than you do any other time. So of course that's going to create more havoc in your system internally, and your body gets stuck in what we call a sympathetic dominance. So you have your autonomic nervous system, right, and you have your sympathetic and your parasympathetic state. And your sympathetic state is what we call your fight or flight. Like if a saber-toothed tiger was chasing you, you're not just gonna, right, here's my saber-toothed tiger. You're not just gonna sit down and kind of enjoy a cup of tea, go to the restroom, do your thing. All those functions of your system, which are the rest and digest, that's your parasympathetic. So if your body's in that mentally emotional stress, it starts to affect your autonomic nervous system too, and of course starts to affect internal function. It'll start to affect sleeping and your sleep-wake cycles. It'll most importantly affect digestion, your immune system, because again, those are all key components of growth and development in your parasympathetic state. And then of course, mentally emotionally too, just comes the mental emotional state and your being, how you're being in the world, how you're smiling, people around you, your environment, everything like that, which then in turn, as you stay in that state, just kind of becomes to a cellular level and starts to physiologically change everything in your system. We're all going to go through stresses. We're all going to go through ups and downs mentally, emotionally. But more importantly, we have to figure out how to kind of put ourselves in that different place. If you ever need to vent to us about anything or have a concern, please let us know, because our goal is not only to get you adjusted, but then to boost everything in your system out too and address all of those different stresses. So thank you, Miss Virginia, and I hope that made sense.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking about this yesterday because I don't know what we're watching on TV. We don't do a whole lot of TV watching, but something was stressful and like tense, and I felt my body tense, and that's an emotional stress. Although this obviously was just TV, but imagine people live in a stressful state all the time, whether they're unhappy with work, having family issues, and they just are. I felt like I wasn't breathing because I was just tensing. So I know that was having a physical impact on my body if I would have stayed that way for a long time. We've seen these people that they're like a little hunched over, or just their chest is sunken inward because they're so stressed, and that obviously has spinal repercussions as well. So thank you again, Virginia, for that question and letting us elaborate on that. Question 2 came from Sandy, and she asked, maybe these aren't the exact words, but she wanted to know how we know what to adjust. So she said that she sits in the chairs there watching other people get adjusted, and some people, we start them face up, sometimes we start them face down, sometimes we only touch the neck or only go to the lower part of their spine. And how do we know? How do we know on day-to-day visits what we're looking for? So you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So anytime that we scan you, of course, it's not just a beautiful picture that we hand you with your report card of your nervous system, but we take a deeper look and we review those scans and we figure out really what pathways we need to address, what patterns we need to break. So your scans are a major part of what we're doing and how we're adjusting that body, and we basically take it layer by layer. Because in some systems we can't overstimulate and touch every single part of the spine, and in some systems we can. And for some people you start face up, and some people you start face down, and some of you we roll. A lot of that also has to do with based off your x-rays. So if we see that your spinal curvature is a certain way, we know that if we adjusted you the opposite way, we're not going anywhere, and that's not going to be the most beneficial for your spine. And of course, most importantly, this is how we know. So through our palpation and through, of course, all of our years of study, we really get to identify what's going on in that system, where we feel those subluxations, where there's more tension, what gets to open up. So it's kind of this big combo of things that get together. But thanks for that question. That was a really, really good one.
Yeah, and I think just to sum up, it would be your past stresses, so the physical, chemical, emotional stresses, your x-rays, your current health habits, and most importantly, our hands, and then the scans. So those two guide us on a day-to-day, and those will continue to be our guiding light, our path to figure out what subluxation patterns you have and what we get to address in a very systematic way. So great question. It really made us think about it because it's so second nature. Like, well, we just do it. But to explain it and break it down is a great opportunity. So thank you, Sandy.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you next week.
See you next time. Episode 3 coming up.